yeah, the banks are very, very much responsible for the situation that we're in. And predatory lending practices have really gotten out of control. I don't know that I'm completely comfortable with nationalizing the banks. I want there to be ties that say this much money will be made available by this date at this time for loans, and I want to know what the criteria of that's going to be. So that's, I don't know about nationalizing. Healthcare, yes. Banks, I don't know.
And there seems to be a consensus when it comes to blaming the banks for the current economic crisis.
The mortgages and giving people loans without caring whether they would be able to pay them back and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The top people, absolutely. They just stole. I mean, they played with phony money after phony paper stuff, making more loans on top of loans, selling them. It's all fake.
They never saw the possibility of to see the economy like it is right now, and giving so many loans. I think they are responsible for that. Not the whole part, but a big part of it is part of that, yeah.
But when it comes to the question of nationalization, not everyone can agree on what would be the best measure.
Well, I think all options should be on the table. I mean, considering the behavior of the banks and the instability of the markets, if the stability demands nationalization, then so be it. If not, I think then we have to consider other options.
I think the nationalization will be fantastic for the people and everybody else around us, and it's going to help the economy, and, I think it'll do a good thing.
If they nationalize Citigroup and Bank of America, then the next day is the end of the everything, pretty much. So I don't believe that this is what's going to happen, and the economy does not reflect that the majority of the public does not think that either.
No, it's not a good idea. But you need to have regulation. You can't let them operate without some sort of control, some sort of supervision or oversight. That's all you need, because I don't think it's a good idea to create a socialist banking system in the United States. But if you have control and oversight, then we can get things done.
Well, Congresswoman, there you have it from the streets of Brooklyn, New York. As you start to work on legislation that makes the next set of plans possible, what do you have to worry about? What do you have to make sure that you avoid doing? What has to be the worries on the minds of committee members who are putting this together?
Well, first, let me just say that whatever alternatives are placed into the system, it will not be called nationalization. The word scares people. It conjures up images of third world countries who take over the banking and the oil and everything else. And so whatever we do, it will have a nice name to it, but it may be, in fact, nationalization, but it won't be called that. We must make sure that we have some fairness in the system. The TARP has not been responsive to small banks and regional banks. They have not been afforded the kind of intervention that's been afforded to the big banks that are considered too big to fail. The mandates have not been there for those banks who have been given huge sums of money to say, you can't just take our money and go buy another small bank with it. You can't just take our money and give out big bonuses to the CEOs and top management. So we have to have some restrictions and some mandates. And in the final analysis, we've got to have regulation. We are in this fix pretty much because our regulatory agencies failed us. They had all of these toxic products out on the market in the subprime meltdown that we had. Alt-A loans with no documentation, these adjustable rate mortgages. None of our regulatory banks said a thing. They did not say one word as they watched these exotic products just take over the mortgage markets, and that's what led us into much of the situation that we're in now. So we've got to do all of those things.
David, you heard the Congresswoman mention that this is what we've done so far is mostly favored big banks. In Puerto Rico, which with about 4 million people would be one of the larger states in the union, only one bank has gotten any help from all these federal rescue programs. Can you craft something that's going to equitably treat the big banks with their big needs, but also recognize that small banks have their customers and need solvency as well?
Well, first off, it's important to recognize that there's over 10,000 regulated depository institutions, financial institutions in this country. Majority of them are small and community-based. The majority of them are perfectly solvent. And in fact, the vast bulk, almost the near majority of them are entirely solvent. And what we're talking about is a very small number of financial institutions, and in this case, some very large financial institutions that aren't financially solvent. And so when we talk about the issues of how are we going to be able to provide equitable help, it's about how we are going to be treating and incentivizing lending by the investments, say, for instance, the hedged investments of assets that would lead to, for instance, more small business lending or more consumer lending or more asset-based backed lending. And that's essentially what we need to try to deal at. And also then deal with the issues of the large banks, because like the Congresswoman said, nationalization is probably not going to be the word because it's mostly a politically charged term. It's a political term, not a financial term, because we would like to think as a business community that this concept of nationalization is mostly what a business or an individual has to go through, for instance, through bankruptcy. It's a reorganization of funds, the federal government intervening and regulating the payment periods, or in many cases, protection from creditors. So generally speaking, while we're not very thrilled about the federal government's intervention, we understand that it's about the practical approach, and the practical approach is getting the financial institutions working again.
Juan Carlos?
Well, I'll go with I think that bill failed, the one about giving the bankruptcy judge the authority to refinance your mortgages. And
no, it has not failed yet.
Let me go by part. I think we can all agree that if the amount of money that we're talking about is just what's left, the second part of TARP, a whole bunch of small banks are going to fail. It's not enough money to take care of everybody. It's a serious concern. I actually think that this problem is a lot bigger than the numbers that we're talking about today. And I think America needs to realize it. You know, I don't like it. I wish there was some other way to do it, but there's no cheap way around it. It's gonna cost. And I hope we do the right decisions, because I don't think we're gonna have a second shot at this. In the case of Puerto Rico had three major banks. Banco Popular is the bank that you're referring. They've got almost $1 billion of TARP so far. The other two major banks in Puerto Rico were subject to wrong, they followed JP Morgan's recommendation on how to evaluate their market. It turns out it was wrong. A whole bunch of officers went down had to resign based on their numbers. They need to reassess. And even Banco Popular today, its stock went from $35 to $2. It's like $2.08 this morning. The other two banks are around 50 cents or 30 cents when they used to be around $12 and $18. Situation in Puerto Rico is bad. And something needs to be done. It needs to be above and beyond just Banco Popular. It's just that because they're the largest solvable bank left in the island, if the federal government doesn't help them, then all three of them are just going to go down